In the realm of Level 9 Blood War, facing the law enforcer of Level 11, I found myself in a perplexing situation. Instead of reacting negatively to my presence, this law enforcer invited me to the Jupiter Alliance on the planet Amok, eager to help me achieve the highest accolades on the Master Star. All of this was merely because I am not only a top-tier transcendent being, but I also grasp the nuances of the Level 11 love law, even at Level 9. Upon ascending to the transcendent star, I could exchange for numerous life stars. Yet little did I expect to be a rare transcendent being of the sun level in the annals of history. Having just faced off against the law enforcer, I had made my resolution from afar. Agent 07 finally arrived at Lin Shin, but in the blink of an eye, he was left in awe by the sight before him. After an evenly matched battle not long ago, he now found himself enduring the might of a Level 11. At that moment, he felt as if he were caught in a dream. Facing the questions from his teammates, he became increasingly bewildered. When discussing the one fighting the law enforcer, it was none other than Lin Shin, the transcendent being of his caliber. Lin Shin Li Ming immediately expressed disbelief. His first reaction was to think that Lin Shiyi was joking with him. After all, according to his previous description, Lin Shin was merely at Level 9. How could someone at Level 9 stand toe-to-toe with a Level 11 powerhouse? What level of transcendent being must I be? As they contemplated this, Lam Thak Nyip and Li Min exchanged a glance, and in that moment, a single phrase echoed in their minds: rare-grade super entity. Yet, even throughout the entirety of the South Trang region's history, such rare-grade super entities had only manifested once before. Now, it had ascended to the pinnacle of power, Level 13. In that fleeting instant, both felt an overwhelming haze of uncertainty. To introduce a rare-grade super entity is akin to winning the jackpot in the celestial galaxy. However, little did they know that their dreams would remain forever out of reach. Meanwhile, in the battle zone on the other side of the new Jupiter, within the Amok region, I had finally unveiled my identity. Immediately, I transmitted the information through my communication device to the law enforcers. Upon hearing this, relief washed over me, but soon after, a wave of emotion surged within my heart. In a blink, he suddenly thrust me away with a powerful swing, exclaiming that it was all a misunderstanding. Yet, despite his words, my expression remained unchanged. Indeed, I had simultaneously employed two techniques, instantly drawing his attention. But just at that moment, as the law enforcer grappled with the idea of unleashing his true strength upon me, a thought struck him. Perhaps I did not comprehend the universal language. With this realization, he promptly conveyed his thoughts to me through mental energy. And as I received this information, I finally came to a halt. It turned out they are here to arrest Hoshimi, who was defeated by the Star Team. He just thought I was a member of the Star Team, so he gave me a strange button that could translate all the languages in the universe as long as I put it on. Spy 7 and I were invited to board Hosokawa's spaceship. After some verification, law enforcement officers finally confirmed my identity. Then he suddenly felt a strong sense of joy. In the end, I was not only a high-level superhero, but also had never been discovered by anyone. At that moment, he looked at me, not at a single person, but at an unparalleled super treasure. Now, all he had to do was take control of the priority in his own hands, so that no one else had a chance to take me away. With this in mind, he smiled and introduced himself as Zhang Yan, a law enforcement officer from Baixing District. Because I provided great help in capturing the celebrity team, he decided to work hard to give me the maximum reward. However, this requires me to go to the center of the Jupiter Federation myself, but after listening, I fell into contemplation because entering space now is a bit unexpected. Regarding this, Zhang Yan said that you can build a spacecraft for you within a distance of 500 light-years. 2.5 months later, I agreed and promised to complete the story of Langshin before departure, while Spy 07 remained immersed in a beautiful fantasy of the future in another room of the spaceship. But at this moment, Li Min suddenly glanced at him, shook her head, and asked if he was too optimistic. Now that the new law enforcement officers in Amu District have realized the truth, do you think we can bring him back smoothly? When I heard Li Min say Agent 07, I was very scared because both the Amu region and the Bayou region are part of the Shirakawa system. I currently do not have citizenship in space, so as long as Zhang Yan takes me back to the Amu region first, I could definitely become a member of Amu District. Thinking about this, Li Min immediately proposed to meet with his superiors, but at that moment, a wave of stars came from afar. Immediately after, a large spacecraft appeared nearby. Agent 07 and Zhang Yan were both pleased to see this, as it was the spacecraft of law enforcement officers in the Bayou area. However, when they wanted to go there to meet the officers, Zhang Yan went to their spacecraft alone. Shortly after Zhang Yan returned, Lin was unemployed and just wanted to go there. But at that time, some people on the spaceship stopped them, saying that they needed to take some notes to arrest this new Taoist, so they needed you to cooperate to the Amu area, and they also seized all your communication equipment. Lin, unemployed, suddenly understood the situation, but he ultimately sighed and did not take action. He realized that when this incident was exposed, it could likely trigger a war between the two celebrities, and Zhang Yan just grinned without much worry. At the same time, on the ship in Bayan District, he sat happily in the cockpit. This is an interesting celebration event, firstly because the destructive Star Road team with 4 stars finally received support, and secondly because he didn't do anything in this operation, but Zhang Yan was still willing to give him 13 credits. The only thing needed was to lead 7 Knights back and record it. Therefore, Shiluo answered the question without hesitation. At this moment, a new police officer came in and said that the video of the operation in the Mujin area was being arranged. Therefore, it may take some time to send the video to Shilok, because as one of the participants, the process of watching the video is necessary. So not receiving the video quickly became strange, but later he didn't pay much attention. Ultimately, since he was not the last person to handle this case, whatever problems arose were not his concern. At that moment, Starway Across continued to report that a person named Li Mun requested a meeting, but he had already been taken to Moktun for documentation. Unable to contact Shiluo, didn't think too much. He said he would wait until he sorted out the records before discussing. Is there anything else? The member invited Gangling to attend his daughter's birthday party tomorrow evening. It's time, tomorrow night. Listen, Sailor, he blinked and said this is a major event. He immediately ordered the control station to accelerate the Blue Pride. At the same time, on the other side, I returned to Hanstar, and the next step is to prepare for a new chapter in the interstellar universe. Time will come tomorrow night. When Selek heard this news, he immediately opened his eyes and said it was really important. He immediately ordered the Blue Pride to accelerate its journey. At the same time, I returned to the Blue Star and prepared to head to the new planetary universe. At the age of 21, I decided to leave Longxin and explore the universe alone because I predicted that in 8 years, the Earth would disappear. Now, although I have become the highest god in the world, I still cannot cope with the root of this disaster. Therefore, in order to give the people of Earth a new opportunity, my mother must search for new planets in space. To enable everyone to migrate there and start a new life, the cosmic law enforcement gave me a few days to say goodbye. Therefore, I used 2.5 minutes to circle the Earth and found that the disaster I created had been quickly resolved. However, due to this event, the spirit of martial arts around the world reached a new peak. And I, as the most powerful deity, also reached the pinnacle of my prestige. Even after losing the country, many cities erected statues of me and built cultural squares dedicated to the god of war. On the one hand, I constantly accept the faith of the people, which makes the whole Langxin warm to me, but that's why the responsibility on my shoulders has become even heavier. Unfortunately, Langxin's limits are too low. If these beliefs could spread to the universe, they would be of great help to me. After all, I currently have a strategy equivalent to level 11, but upgrading to level 11 soon could result in losing level 11 support. In addition to absorbing the knowledge of Wang Han and Duan Yifeng, I must also implement the other 3 guidelines that I inferred when I returned to my community at some point. But as soon as I appeared, instead of hurrying inside, I looked towards the cleaner working nearby. Although he appeared ordinary on the outside, Inside, he was a fully fledged level 8 deity. As I recalled this, a surge of awareness swept through me, revealing that within this neighborhood, over 40 high-ranking level 8 individuals were residing, either as managers or protectors. In that moment, I realized this was a strategic move orchestrated by the leaders of Long Nation. However, I had no intention of disturbing them. I headed straight home. When I arrived, my parents and younger sister were gathered around the dining table, but upon seeing me, they suddenly looked perplexed. I smiled and told them I was back, then took my seat at the table, as I always did. It wasn't long before my mother realized something was off. Immediately, she thought to fetch me a pair of chopsticks and a bowl, but upon seeing me shake my head, I gently waved my hand in the air, and instantly, a complete set of chopsticks and bowls appeared before me. This scene left my sister wide-eyed with astonishment. She excitedly exclaimed that she wanted to learn this trick too. Yet, my father looked at me with a complex expression. After a moment of contemplation, he asked me seriously, "Are you truly the prince of the planet, Baoboy?" At that point, I knew I could no longer keep this information hidden. So I nodded at my father and confirmed, "From now on, I can't keep it under wraps anymore. In fact, I am the Saiyan Prince of planet Vegeta." When I was 3 years old, my family escaped to planet Dumuk. Right now, my combat skills have fully awakened. All I need is for each family member to contribute 50 to build a spaceship. Once I achieve my revenge, I will elevate you all to planetary lords. After hearing this, my grandparents looked bewildered, but Lu, the quickest to react, stepped closer to me. Immediately after, Lu surrounded me, eager to uncover what kind of being her brother had become. At that moment, my father stood there, mouth agape, bursting into laughter as he exclaimed that our family had truly stirred the ancestral tomb this time. Today, we must drink together. Before long, the moonlight mingled with a hint of intoxication began to rise among the branches. My father was led into the resting room by my mother to recover, while my sister dashed into the training room. She announced that she would practice all night, determined to reach the master rank within 3 years. 10 years to achieve military victory. I won't say much about that. I let them be free, believing I had returned to an old neighborhood, the very place I had lived for 18 years. Pushing the door open, I stepped straight into my old room. For a fleeting moment, I could almost see my younger self, hiding in the room every day, practicing in silence. Though increasing my strength by 0.01 was a daunting task, each training session brought a joy that could excite me for an entire day. Now it seems I may never experience that feeling again, but I have enough strength to help others become better. Ultimately, even though this is my mother's place, I know I cannot stay here forever. The best course of action was to empower Lan Tam to protect herself. With this thought in mind, I began organizing information from the Fire Resource Vault, deciding to present a portion of my inheritance and promote it to the public. At the same time, I would introduce several advanced formulas I had acquired in the past. Now I can take out everything and hand it over to Shichingsu to make. That night, I sat in my room and pondered for a long time, thinking about the future of Lanxin. The next day, the moon was replaced by morning light, and I decided to go see the last person. At a headquarters in the Eastern Military Region, I was revising my dance training policy. Just then, my figure suddenly appeared beside her, smiling and already working, but later she began to regret that it wasn't all for you. But before you could finish speaking, I interrupted you. For the past few days, I have been asking them to give you a vacation, and I will take you to relax, and then 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. We learned to stroll to the highest mountain peak in the city like an ordinary couple, watch the stars, and eat under candlelight. We also went to the beach to watch the sunrise and sunset, and our last stop was the Civil Affairs Bureau of Baihei Town. At this moment, I held a red file in my hand and said innocently, "Today is definitely the day when Lanxin will be recorded in history." The strongest man who registered for marriage today stared at me with a smile on his face after hearing this. She then asked me, "So what now?" After hearing her, I felt a twinge of pride, and I turned to Dongtan Tuyet with a gentle gaze, saying, "Today, the strongest being on this planet begins their journey into the cosmos. The short term may last a few months, while the long term could stretch to a year. When I return, we will hold a proper wedding ceremony. Dongthan Tuet seemed unfazed by this, resting her head on my shoulder and nodding softly. We embraced and talked for a long time, during which I presented her with the Han-Star communication device. After that, I carefully organized the red dossier I had just received and then waved goodbye to Dongthan Tuet to inform her parents. A moment later, my image vanished like mist into the air. Ultimately, when I return, I will officially step into the cosmos. Not only have I gained insight into the workings of advanced cosmic civilizations, but I have also discovered that my own path is just beginning. Right after bidding farewell to my family and friends, both Dongthan Tuet and I successfully received the red dossier. I handed her a Han-Star communication device, and then we set off to board the Starwell spaceship, soaring towards the outer reaches of the land star. As I stepped inside, I was taken aback. The interior was far from the cold sterility I had imagined. On the contrary, this is a well-organized big city. There are many law enforcement officers rotating in this city, with only one huge Level 9 and over 1,000 people. Level 8 is countless. Now Sun Yuan waves to me. Then he led me to an empty room, and suddenly he pressed a light ball in front of him with his hand, and a large amount of multicolored material immediately gushed out around it. In an instant, a large amount of furniture was created. Because this area suddenly became his home, Zhang Yan said with a smile, "It's just some small techniques. As long as you touch this bright sphere and release his thoughts, this space can be transformed into any scene. Release your own thoughts. This space can freely transform any scene." I am immediately interested in the current situation. Then the surrounding scenes start to change. Snow mountains, oceans, and jungles all appear with just one click. What's even stranger is that these scenes are not entirely fictional. It contains some real properties, which reminds me of the cosmic instinct in my dreams. Perhaps the cosmic civilization is more powerful than I imagined. At that time, Zhang Yan walked over with a somewhat bewildered expression, saying that seeing me was like seeing himself. Originally, his mother had once been a Level 4 resource planet, but many years ago, it suddenly transformed into a battlefield planet. Therefore, he alone left the mother planet in search of hope. Fortunately, just before their mother planet completely fell, the federal government began a citizen evacuation plan. Therefore, after most of the creatures on their planet survived for a year, my eyes immediately lit up and I asked about the details of this plan. Of course, in order to maintain the development of the entire spin of the universe, only citizens registered with the Federation can migrate between planets. Otherwise, they will be arrested and sent to workers on other planets. To become a citizen of the new Federation, the requirement is that the astronaut's ability reaches level 59. Of course, one can also buy a living planet and migrate on their own. A low-tier planet only costs a few 100 million star coins, while a higher-tier planet requires over 1 billion star coins. Although low-tier planets seem cheaper, their environment simply cannot produce beings stronger than level 9 or above. Once a race loses contact with advanced civilization for an extended period, they will actually become all too familiar with death. Upon hearing this, I made a resolute decision. I had thought that the few 100,000 star coins that had been seized would be enough. Little did I know that purchasing a planet was still a distant dream. However, at this moment, Zhang Yan continued to inform me that there exists a hierarchy among the citizens. To purchase a planet, one must attain level 3 or higher, and the threshold for becoming a level 3 citizen is to reach level 11. There are benefits for purchasing planets starting from level 5, and there's even a chance to own a personalized style. Upon hearing this, a plan began to form in my mind. Whether it's becoming a level 3 citizen or acquiring a planet to live on, the crucial point is to reach level 11 within the next 8 years to emigrate before Planet Green faces destruction. After that, I inquired Zhang Yan about the combat power system of the universe. To my surprise, aside from measuring equipment, the simplest way to test a person's strength is through combat power destruction. The prerequisite is to reach level 11 within 8 years. Only then can we complete the migration before Planet Blue's annihilation. Subsequently, I asked Jiang Yan about the combat power system in the void. I didn't expect that aside from the power testing instruments, the simplest method of testing among the powerful was through combat power destruction. The void is composed of multiple layers, with the first layer being the surface we can see now. As he spoke, a black crack suddenly appeared in his hand. Due to the varying consequences of the void in different areas, creating a crack in the first layer of the void is no simple feat. It's quite simple. Even just a few dozen points of power on the star battlefield could suffice. However, if one wishes to completely obliterate the barrier for the first time, at least 10,000 points of power in the combat arena are required. This is what they call the power of breaking barriers for the first time. As soon as he spoke, Jiang Yan suddenly released a breath that sent chills down my spine. After wiping away the cracks before him, he sighed and said that even though he had reached level 11 now, but the maximum combat intensity is only over 60,000, and the second hurdle requires at least 10,000 points. In the void we currently know, at least 4 layers or more are needed to break through. No one who was not a level 13 warrior could feel the terrifying breathing on Jiang Yan's body, and I immediately resumed the invasion of the previous level 11 warrior. If I had really done this, I would have been crushed by him long ago. After explaining so much about the universe to me, Jiang Yan would not have stayed, but stood up and apologized. At the same time, let them know what I saw here. Shortly after the conversation ended, I once again entered the dream space. After a long time, due to the integration of the 1579 base into my body, when I reappeared, I was still between a dead star space and my current urgent mission. After finding the new planet, I immediately searched the fire source database and continued searching for wind attributes throughout the universe. Soon after, a series of green light spots appeared on the control panel, with the brightest one pointing to a level 15 island. Even the nearest train station is thousands of light years away from me, which is why I chose the first 5 peaks, because there is no transportation in the universe, and only acceleration can improve travel efficiency. However, I could only narrow down the search scope. In the end, I found about a dozen level 11 powerhouses, as well as 2 level 12 powerhouses and 1 level 13 powerhouse. After careful consideration, I did not directly choose a level 13 powerhouse. Although the power in my dream only had some abilities from my lifetime, its combat effectiveness continued to increase. So people at level 12 are more suitable for today's people. Thinking about this, I immediately started moving towards my goal, but soon I realized that my ideas on the blue planet were too simple. On the blue planet, my speed reached several hundred kilometers per second, but in the vast universe, it was like returning to a destination that no one knew how long it would take to reach. As I contemplated this, I began to experiment relentlessly and discovered that this model truly worked. When my mental prowess reached a certain peak, I found I could separate my thoughts. By utilizing my mental energy, I could isolate a portion of my consciousness to rest. Meanwhile, the remaining part of my mind continued to foster creativity. From that moment on, even when awake, I could persist in battling within my dreams. Once this model was perfected, I was astonished to realize that my resources were far more potent than those of others. Now I could simultaneously split my consciousness to rest. How could other cosmic geniuses surpass me? I pondered this as my dreamscape transformed, and I surged through the 4 seasons of the void at breakneck speed. In reality, however, I was grappling with an immediate dilemma. Pure energy flowed relentlessly into my martial arts essence. In a heartbeat, the immortal cells in my body began to regenerate rapidly. Just as I anticipated how much stronger I could become this time, in the distant city of Baihe, at the residence of the military god, a new family had suddenly moved in. A 21-year-old boy stayed up all night on the phone, striving to provide a better life for his girlfriend, only for her to choose to leap into the river. And here I was, also 21 years old. Faced with the goddess, my interest piqued. I bluntly informed her that I was already married. Yet upon hearing this, not only did the goddess disregard my situation, but she also moved in overnight to my neighborhood, becoming my neighbor. The moment I learned about the Void civilization from Jiang Yan, I plunged into a new cycle of secluded cultivation. In an instant, my mental energy transformed into an immense force, continuously flooding into my dance space. My terrifying absorption rate caught Zhang Yan's attention. His gaze turned towards me, filled with profound appreciation at first. However, it didn't take long for that admiration to shift into shock, as the speed at which my mental energy was depleting accelerated dramatically, showcasing the sheer magnitude of my absorption. My consumption had reached hundreds of tons of positive energy, enough to classify me as a level 10 powerhouse. Yet, within my chamber, I wore an indifferent expression, showing no signs of slowing down my absorption whatsoever. At this moment, the number of immortal cells within my body had reached a staggering 5,000. The boundless light and warmth continuously nurtured my immortal star-shaped form. As I sensed Zhang Yan's rigid gaze shift away, my immortal star map erupted immediately in a dazzling display. It felt like a sun igniting with brilliance. In that instant, the 5,000 immortal cells in my hands converged in a frenzy. I clenched my fingers tightly, thrusting them into the space before me. Instantly, large white cracks began to spread out from the empty void. Gradually, a hint of darkness began to seep into the vast expanse of white, an indication of the impending breach of the second layer of space. Though still some distance away from the next rupture, my combat power had already reached the equivalent of a level 11 corpse. Just as I prepared to absorb everything, the Kindu phone beside me suddenly beeped. Upon answering, I found it was a call from Dongtan Tuyet, who offered me a bland glance before stating that recently, in a nearby small district, there had appeared a striking girl with hair as blue as a princess from a fairy tale. It was rumored that she was the biological daughter of the Martial Arts Council president, Edward. Hearing this, I felt a shiver run down my spine, instantly recalling Ralea, whom I had encountered at the Creature Island. Dongtan Tuyet continued, smiling as he said, he had been visiting her home frequently lately and was now familiar with her parents. After hearing this, a chill swept through me, but before I could elaborate any further, Dongtan Tuyet hung up, claiming his phone had run out of battery. It was in that moment. Lu Thanha approached me, then asked Dongtan Tuyet seriously what had fueled his martial arts convictions. Given my current standing on Planet Green, Lu Thanha had now secured the best training environment across the entire Planet Green. Lu Qingshe is considering moving forward, and without a doubt, she directly asked Dong Qingshe what supports her own martial arts beliefs, because of my position in the Netherlands. Now, Lu Qingshe has the best training environment in almost the entire Netherlands. Therefore, in the past few years, he has made significant progress, reaching level 6, but after reaching level 7, he needs to focus on becoming a true lion, which cannot be compensated for by resources. And this is exactly when Dong Qingshe is about to speak up. Suddenly, a woman with blue hair appeared in the villa. Seeing this, Lu Qing and Chen Qing immediately became angry and hurriedly asked Dong Qingshui to be wary of Lai Luo. However, Dong Qingshui politely nodded and refused. In the next moment, Lu Qinghe said calmly, to become my wife, the most important thing is not anything else, but someone who can be with her. Only by following in my footsteps can I be qualified to officially become your wife. You enter the adjacent cultivation room directly. You are a very talented person, and with the ideal philosophy I gave you earlier, are you completely ready to deal with this planet now? Standing there obediently, Lu Qinghe was really confused, but later his eyes gradually became bright because he finally found his direction in martial arts and wanted to do his best to follow in his brother's footsteps. Meanwhile, aboard the Hoshiro ship, I found myself in a predicament. At this moment, I had entered a dreamlike space after this arduous journey, and I had finally arrived at my destination, standing before me. It was a ruined planet, yet its size dwarfed that of Earth by hundreds of times. This was the true realm where champions like Wang Xia and Duan Yifeng were born, just a glimpse of the legends. As I pondered this, my image shot through the dark night like a shooting star. I brought vibrant colors long unseen to this silent planet, and in the blink of an eye, my spirit expanded immeasurably. But alas, the strength within me could barely cover half of my heart, leaving only a tiny fragment of my emotions shielded. Frustrated, I was once again on the hunt for the source of my fire. Shortly afterwards, I swiftly pinpointed a colossal base. The flames in my eyes ignited instantly. An astounding power surged from my soul, radiating outward and creating a massive wave. Here I adhered to no rules or regulations, for this entire universe was my playground. In an instant, I appeared at the base with blinding speed. A punch, infused with the essence of the heavens, obliterated a multitude of corpses that couldn't even react before vanishing into nothingness. Soon after, a thick curtain of black mist enveloped my face. This scene triggered a reaction among the powerful corpses in the area. Seemingly from the ruins, decaying silhouettes began to rise, eventually forming a mysterious wave of darkness surging towards me. There are hundreds of people at level 11 alone, and almost all the rest are level 9 or higher dancers. But in the center of the storm, I don't belong to the martial arts rules. Every time I punch, no one can stop me, even level 11 corpses. At that moment, this huge facility completely turned into my stadium, but I still felt that the performance was too poor. It was at that moment that the gods around me began to gather together, and a 1,000-meter-high giant hand suddenly appeared in the sky. At that moment, my voice transformed into the thunderous sound of a storm, unleashing my power to forge the Valley of Light for the gods. I hope that the heroic spirits of your kind may endure for eternity. In the next instant, the muzzles of the guns converged like a deadly blade, tearing apart the fabric of the void. In that fleeting moment, an endless torrent of sharpness flooded the cosmos. As the colossal hand of that giant spellbox slowly and confidently rose, all the filth of the world was held back before an empty void. There I stood, amidst a mountain of corpses, like an undying soul, surrounded by an infinite, dark atmosphere that formed a vast starry sky. Soon after, the relentless downpour rushed into the depths of my despair. In this moment, I felt my power box expanding rapidly, the stars of will converging quickly on the 4 fur-covered panels. But most importantly, the laws of the level 11 powerhouse surged through me, hundreds of martial secrets transforming into an overwhelming force that flowed into my body, making me nearly the master of the ultimate laws. Yet, as I deeply sensed these achievements, a terrifyingly superior power emerged at the heart of the base. In an instant, a bright beam suddenly sliced through everything before my eyes, and then an image appeared before me. It was the strongest level 12 powerhouse on this planet, who had discovered a new world with a completely advanced civilization in his dreams. But lo and behold, he found that on this planet, there were only countless level 11 powerhouses, among them individuals above level 9 capable of forming a formidable force. Yet here I was, a mere level 9, feeling serene and at ease, because even in reality, I had already reached level 11. In the next battle, with the emergence of the level 10 power box, the sky unexpectedly turned sharp, annihilating all the undead. However, as I carefully sensed these results, a horrifying specter suddenly appeared before me, and it was none other than the level 12 powerhouse of this planet, Zhang Yangchen. At this moment, his body seemed immensely powerful and heavy, yet he remained the sole king of speed and the wind on this earth. If level 11 represented merely an initial encounter with the laws, then level 12 was the mastery of those laws to shape one's body accordingly. Indeed, this celestial sphere at level 12 belonged to the formidable Zhang Yangshen. His physique appeared extraordinarily robust and heavy, yet he reigned as the unparalleled sovereign of speed and wind within this realm. If level 11 was merely the first step in understanding the rules, then level 12 was the art of harnessing those rules to sculpt one's own body. Với khả năng điều chỉnh quy tắc mạnh mẽ và khả năng tự chữa lành thường thì, loại sinh vật này đã trở thành một thực thể bất tử. Nhưng hiện tại, trên cơ thể Zhang Yangchen không một chỗ nào còn nguyên vẹn sức mạnh, quy tắc đã bị hủy hoại hoàn toàn. Tuy nhiên, dù vậy, khí thế trên cơ thể anh vẫn rất đáng sợ. Lúc này, 5.000 tế bào trong cơ thể tôi bắt đầu sáng lên liên tục. Ngay lập tức, bản đồ mạch của Vương quốc Mặt Trời phát sáng một cách rực rỡ. A strange feeling, as if a golden castle was making a long sound from my chest, and my entire body turned into a dazzling light, but Zhang Yangchen still didn't show any expression. He just moved gently and easily stopped my attack. In the blink of an eye, a spark suddenly erupted from me. At the beginning of the 5th season, Tianko Huo, just as the words ended, the blazing flames covered the entire space. But after the fire went out, Zhang Yangchen just stood there, waving his axe. There were no signs of injury on his body, but suddenly, before I could react, Zhang Yangchen's eyes seemed to tremble as countless rules kept merging into his axe. Then his shape turned into a blue light, rushing towards me. In less than 2.5 minutes in reality, I suddenly opened my eyes and frowned. I began to think that my combat power was close to Zhang Yan, but I still couldn't defeat Zhang Yangchen. Just because his speed rule is so overwhelming, this battle has become incredibly challenging. But soon, I won't worry too much after all. There's still half of the true mantra left to fully absorb. Waiting to absorb all the combat energy can at least double my power. Furthermore, even though I've left the dream realm, my essence continues to assault other strongholds. After consuming these 2 elements, perhaps I will reach the 2nd level of combat strength at level 9. As I pondered this, I started to ravenously absorb the meridians without pause. It didn't take long. Half a month had already slipped by. During these days, aside from guiding Lanjin's sister and wife, I dedicated all my other time to enhancing myself in both dreams and reality. One day, my meridians were finally fully absorbed. In the dream, over 90 powerful beings had turned into memories. At this moment, the immortal cells within my body had reached 10,000 grams, and my 5 elements box had surged to 130,000 meters in a single breath. This was indeed the pinnacle I could currently achieve. As I thought of the immortal cells within me transforming once again into the sun goddess, a terrifying surge of tropical energy erupted, surpassing anything I had experienced before. At this moment, I felt as if I had transformed into a true star. Just with my breath, the space around me began to show signs of collapse. Not only that, but when the immortal cells reached 10,000 grams, the meridians seemed to undergo a change as well. Suddenly, a divine and immortal aura began to emanate from me. The shape of the sword, I suddenly broke through space forward, and the space collapsed at an extremely fast speed, turning the black hole in front of me into a blank space in an instant. But when the white cracks accumulated to an extreme, a new black crack appeared from there, which was a manifestation of the second collapse and standing up. My soul finally calmed down after being strong, but until there was absolute power in the universe, I couldn't completely relax my vigilance towards him. Only now can I truly make friends with him with peace of mind. After becoming familiar with my current power, I once again entered my dream. As he approached, he immediately caught the attention of Zhang Yangchen. His empty eyes flickered again with a flash, and he rushed towards me at lightning speed. He saw the heat inside my body turn into a fire, awakening the world. The golden hair in my eyes quickly turned gray. The most powerful force immediately attacked me, and now on my stage miraculously manifested itself. Just standing there, making the space shake directly, now I seemed to have become the master of light and heat. 1 second later, my photo suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Yangchen. Soon after, I punched him directly, but saw that Zhang Yangchen had no expression. He just raised his combat weapon to resist my attack, but now I am much stronger than last time. Not long after, with the appearance of 2 official figures, Zhang Yangchen flew away like a bullet. Along the way, he tore through space, but I seemed to have anticipated it. My image was like a god walking in the air, quickly chasing after him. I just saw many stars in my fist rapidly spinning and turning into 3 diamond towers, which rapidly descended forward. Right in front of me, the space ahead began to crack apart in fragments, and Zhang Yangchen's combat weapon turned into a huge prey. But at this moment, Zhang Yangchen's shape suddenly turned into a foam and disappeared. Seeing this, I immediately strengthened my real spiritual strength. Then the surrounding space began to show layers of wrinkles. A second later, Zhang Yangchen fell into a quagmire and gave up his shape. Seeing this, I finally did not hesitate. At this moment, the infinite energy of the universe began to continuously converge towards me. Afterwards, 4 cloaks suddenly appeared behind me, on which countless martial arts wills turned into stars, including over 100 traditional martial arts. In an instant, countless replicas of myself emerged from my cloak. Within moments, the number of figures in the arena swells to thousands. However, at this moment, even though each possesses a distinct martial will, each individual masters a different style of combat. In the next second, all of my dungeons issued warnings simultaneously, and at that moment, the 10 ropes around me were stretched infinitely. In an instant, the empty space seemed to be shattered into pieces. Then, with countless different attacks, shortly after everything gradually calmed down, the person in front of Zhang Yangchen slowly melted into dust. Suddenly, an angry black whirlwind rushed out of his body, and with a loud bang, the whole thing entered my body. And once again, I am about to witness a completely new transformation. The ultimate power has undergone a new cycle of metamorphosis. Not only have I succeeded in gathering 10,000 mystical orbs, but I have also created an indestructible divine body, becoming the Lord of Light and Heat. Even my combat prowess has skyrocketed, surpassing the limits of what was once thought possible. Thus, I have resolved to enter the dreamscape once more, challenging the city of Zhangyang. I stand against the 12th level overseer, the strongest in the universe. At last, I unleash the most powerful weapon of the Wudong martial arts, shattering the fabric of space in the blink of an eye. Thousands of shadowy figures surged forward, an unstoppable torrent of power. With this devastating blow, Zhang Yangchen was finally reduced to nothing but dust. In that instant, memories surged like a dark dragon into my being. It was then that I truly grasped the essence of Zhang Yangchen's martial arts, the soul of the wind. Its name was Tuanfeng Qingyin Quang Lu Dao, capable of unleashing its maximum speed in a heartbeat. While others needed 10 seconds of relentless running to reach that velocity of 100 meters per second, Tuanfeng Qingyin Quang Lu Dao could achieve this pinnacle in merely 1 second. The moment I reached my peak effectiveness, my 5 magical artifacts began to explode once again. In a single breath, I covered a distance of 130,000 meters. At that precise moment, a playful spiral of dragon energy burst forth from within me, transforming into a pair of green earrings. But before I could assess his specific abilities, the news jolted me from my reverie. It turned out that after more than a month of contracts, we had finally arrived at the new region of Amok. In the distance, a colossal planet emerged from the cosmos, its size dwarfing that of the blue planet by hundreds of times. Surrounding it were countless smaller celestial bodies, swirling in a harmonious dance, resembling a grand celestial ballet as our spaceship slowly glided into the star cluster. The splendor of this planet unfolded before my eyes. In the night, a myriad of high-tech architectural wonders intertwined with the backdrop, shimmering like shooting stars across the cityscape. Countless strange and diverse races coexisted harmoniously within this scene, a truly vibrant spectacle. Shortly after our spaceship successfully docked at the vast port, a sleek, small shuttlecraft appeared, ready to take me to the Grand Municipal Hall first. Only by registering as a citizen of Tingkong could one unlock numerous privileges. As he introduced me to Tingkong, I learned that beyond the major districts enforcing the law, 3 dominant powers existed in the universe. They were, in order, Tinte, the banking system. In the virtual universe, the Kingdom and the Battle League, the Mars Bank was renowned as the safest storage facility in the cosmos. It was said that even level 15 powerhouses frequently kept their assets there. Meanwhile, the Kingdom was a fully immersive virtual game. Users included everyone in the universe with an official identity. It not only allowed direct communication among individuals, but also featured functionalities like American-style trading games and martial arts activities. Known as the Second World exclusively for humanity, there are countless players who have participated for decades. However, the prerequisite is that you must possess enough assets to join. Ultimately, in this virtual game, players often spend endlessly, only able to earn money by selling their gains. Throughout the entire universe, there are very few battle alliances, yet it has become the fairest marketplace. Although its function resembles that of the arenas in the Phantom Kingdom, its users encompass all races from around the world. These 3 forces are colossal entities within the universe. Even the new territories and the highest echelons of the galaxy must pay them respect. Hearing this left me in shock, yet at the same time, it ignited an insatiable dream within me. As the spaceship in orbit traced brilliant arcs through the cosmos, Jiang Yan and I finally succeeded in reaching the city hall. Looking around, I couldn't help but be amazed. Although the entire hall seemed to be at level 8, the number of powerhouses at level 9 and above was significantly fewer. It seemed that even in the starry space, level 9 was a formidable boundary. At this moment, Jiang Yan mentioned wanting to greet some friends and then called an attendant to take me for registration. Although he was also a level 9 martial artist like me, being escorted by Jiang Yan, the enforcer, spoke volumes about my status. Half an hour passed, and the staff quickly gave me a blue and white card. As soon as I touched it, information about myself appeared on the card. Looking at the information on the card really confuses me a bit. Usually, level 9 dancers are just a level function, but it shows level 3 in my registration information. The staff patiently explained to me that in addition to the power of relationships, assets and talent are also important criteria for measuring citizenship. Only with Jiang Yan's special recommendation can one reach level 3. The staff continued by saying that Jiang Yan has deposited 100 million new coins into the Xingzhou bank account. After listening, I was very surprised. Due to the fact that the total assets of Peppa Group were only tens of thousands, Jiang Yan easily spent 100 million cents. But later I realized that both the Legion and Chengshan were about to exit the currency system. So I didn't look for all of Peppa's assets before. Now I have a large debt. Jiang Yan's figure appeared at the entrance of the lounge. Seeing the situation, I sincerely thanked Jiang Yan, but she waved coldly and said, "Regarding your impressive performance in the next few days, I will return to headquarters to fight for more rewards for you. During this period, I arranged for a companion to take you for a walk." At the same time, in the Space Law Enforcement Zone, the Mist concentration camp was reporting on the operation. But as soon as the report was over, the elderly person in front of me realized that something was wrong and opened the information in the report directly. The action report this time revealed that it contained only a few brief lines, lacking any supportive information for the sabotage. Seeklak noted that the information from the Wickwood City was only this much. Yet, he had introduced himself to claim the merit of Team 13. The seasoned elder frowned slightly and instructed that I should contact the law enforcement forces in Wickedwood right away, insisting that I needed to see this document immediately. Upon hearing this, Tichlak nodded and promptly made the call. Before long, the image of Jiang Dan appeared before them. At that moment, he seemed quite cheerful, and after greeting the leader of the law enforcement at the White Fog District, Tichlak clearly stated the purpose of this call. Jiang Yin just smiled and said he would send the documents over immediately. Then, he quickly cut off the phone. Seeing this, Chilo finally realized that something was wrong. He quickly cut off communication, as if trying to conceal something. However, before he could think of anything more, the White Mist Zone had already sent files documenting the entire destruction process from start to finish, which was unbearable for the entire White Mist Zone. The true power of the truth has finally come to the attention of the White District. Not only did he eradicate the planetary bandits at their roots, but he also harnessed spiritual energy to effortlessly control a level 10 expert who couldn't escape. However, the real unbearable truth goes beyond that. As Keelak opens the third video, the entire process of my triumph over the disruptors is laid bare. During this ordeal, I showcased a shattering level strategy which practically confirms my level 11 status. Yet, just as he thought I was the new evil would, a newly established district with fresh law enforcement, the fourth video recording directly contradicts his speculations, as it captures the intense battle between me and Jiang Yan. Yet, this also serves to prove that I am not from the origin district. At this moment, Tuplak's mind is more confused than ever. Finally, in the twilight of his reign, the old man opens the final file. At the top of the document, a caption reveals that this operation received assistance from the locals in Luntunmuk. Upon seeing this, Tuplak's expression cannot help but flicker with surprise. But soon after, he dismisses the absurd notion that a low-level civilization like Earth could possibly produce a level 11 being. However, as he begins to console himself, the content below strikes him like a powerful blow. Just because the record above contained all my information, not only was I a local of Lin Tan Mu, but I also had an extraordinary life registration on the Riyao system. After finishing the episode, I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. At that moment, the fog that shrouded my soul suddenly cleared. But what came next was an anger with no way out. However, before I could express my feelings, an emotion that terrified me permeated the air. Looking across, I saw an old man with a grim expression fixated on me, his gaze icy and piercing. With nearly no emotion in his voice, he said, "I believe you are no longer suited for your position in law enforcement. Perhaps it's time for you to take a break." Meanwhile, on the other side of the Yuanmu district, under the guidance of a tour guide, I began my journey through the stars. First stop was at the account creation house. As we flew over a beautiful, bustling metropolis, the tour guide immediately pointed out, "This is the private castle of an important figure." Since this was the last line of defense in the Waimu Tin region, its price had skyrocketed to nearly millions of star coins. However, the average person would typically choose to purchase a planet instead. Even if it was just a planet with a population of about 100 billion, it could still yield a substantial number of star coins each year. Hearing this made me feel uneasy. While I was still reveling in the discovery of hundreds of thousands of star coins, the millionaires above were already starting to buy planets as if they were mere assets. Just half an hour into the flight, we finally arrived at a building suspended in the air. To my surprise, the process of opening an account in the virtual world was very simple. After confirming the person's identity, the blessing was immediately completed, but entering the virtual world was necessary. I need a virtual helmet. The price really makes me complain. Not only do I have to pay 10 stars for one helmet, but I also need to pay an additional star every year to activate it, including an unnamed planet resident helmet. But the price actually doubled, so I bought 100 unnamed hats and activated a 100-year shelf life with 2,000 stars. During this process, the staff introduced me to artificial intelligence, which can help employers manage or count all the information, but artificial intelligence is also divided into different levels, and the highest level can become intelligent life through programs. But the level of Jupiter medicine in the entire region has never appeared. I was a bit shocked to hear this, but I had a bold guess in my heart that shortly after leaving the virtual world, we went to other stores. After a round, I also learned about the price of space civilization. Since I left Longshan and saw the glory of the universe, I have always wanted to take my family to experience it. Therefore, sightseeing planes meet my needs. I started to inquire about the details of the spaceship with the shop assistant, but I didn't expect that the most ordinary spaceship would cost 8,000 yuan, and my entire fortune could only buy one. However, I wasn't alarmed about this and continued to choose with the shop assistant, after all, based on Jiang Yan's previous information. The reward for a failed campaign could reach tens of millions of dollars. But just as I followed the store clerk to the second floor, a sudden flash of yellow rushed straight at me. Seeing this, I immediately summoned my spiritual energy to trap it, but before I could react, a fierce-looking silver-haired woman charged toward me. Trailing behind her were two guards exuding a deep, powerful aura. From their presence, I could tell they were both level 10 experts. As soon as the woman caught sight of me, her eyes sparkled with excitement. She introduced herself as Chow Chow, and the golden insect was her prized pet. The tour guide next to her, Zhong Wenyan, suddenly turned pale and exclaimed that it was the poisonous rice of Count Taisi in the Amo region, indicating that the golden insect was a somewhat mythical life form. Once matured, its power could reach level 10 or even level 11. Even the cheapest one could cost upwards of several tens of millions. With its rare bloodline, it could withstand several life essence planets. Hearing this made me break out in a cold sweat. Without a moment's hesitation, I handed the golden insect back to Chow Chow. It seemed she was quite interested in me, as she eagerly chatted away on our way, exuding an aura of someone who had never faced a storm. Yet, the more she smiled, the more I felt the urge to keep my distance. After all, even the most beautiful flowers can have the fiercest thorns. At this moment, a young man approached us, accompanied by an 11th level bodyguard, Joe Milton's brother. He nodded gently at me first, and then, when he heard about it, Jojo became very hasty after hastily greeting me. He immediately ran to the 3rd floor. But when Jojo left, Milton immediately changed his expression. You're talking about an invader from a planet with scarce resources and almost no talent. He climbed onto the lap of law enforcement, which is why he dared to consider attacking the Wester family. After speaking, he looked at the sales manager next to him and said, "Don't let you see this country bumpkin again." Before I could react, the sales manager of the spacecraft approached me directly and coldly stated that I had made their major clients unhappy, so I was no longer welcome here. Even my previous waiter was pulled out. Soon after, I was kicked out and looked up at the building. I sighed. I forgot how long it had been since I was threatened, but for me, the only person who could help was Jiang Yan. Staff at the reception also pulled out the person who had just been invited out. I looked at the building and took a breath. I had forgotten how long it had been since I was threatened, but when I first arrived, my biggest reliance was on Jiang Yan. Yet, in front of the Sai-Si family, Jiang Yan felt so small and insignificant. Whether it was for Jiang Yan's safety or for Lan Tan's humiliating experience, I had no choice but to silently accept it alone. As these thoughts crossed my mind, I couldn't help but let out a wry smile, preparing to leave. But just as I stepped out of the building and was a few hundred meters away, I suddenly halted. A dangerous glint flashed in my eyes as I recalled how Lan Tan, upon first stepping out, had been labeled as a mere fake. Even on a casual stroll, she was directly chased out of shops by the staff. While everyone assumed I had merely stumbled into this universe by chance, they had no idea that I was one of the rare few capable of defeating the strongest level 11 beings, with a body that could reach level 9. Thus, I could no longer endure this situation. Moments later, I found myself in a corner of the city, and at that moment, my appearance began to rapidly transform. Using sheer will, I mimicked the essence of another's breath. Meanwhile, within the opulent confines of the Westies family spaceship, Milton, having just finished his drink, suddenly instructed the guard that in 3 days, he wanted Jojo and me to be taken to the Celestial Guardian Academy. Only exceptional talents could draw the attention of those from a lowly planet like yours. When faced with an extraordinary being like Lan Che, he would lose interest in anyone else. Upon hearing this, the security guard beside him nodded and prepared to step outside. But suddenly, the spaceship began to shake violently, followed by a deafening roar that reverberated throughout the craft. Seeing this, the guard immediately opened the external window, but as they looked outside, their eyes widened in horror. They saw a middle-aged man outside the spacecraft with a terrifying beam of light aimed directly at them. In response to this situation, the level 11 guard barely had time to react before the beam pierced through the azure sky, splitting the luxurious spaceship in two. A torrent of force surged, leaving Neilton in a state of panic. Had that beam veered off course, he would have met his end in that very moment. However, before he could recover from the shock of impending doom, a murderous intent enveloped him as if it were a palpable force. A furious roar echoed throughout the city. "Milton, you didn't even spare my 100-year-old dinosaur. Not only did you violate it, but you also ruthlessly slaughtered it. Today, I will avenge my newly acquired creature, my dinosaur paw." With these words, thousands of people below looked up in shock, not only at the unparalleled power radiating from within him, but also at the horror of his chilling declaration. Milton, upon hearing this, was momentarily stunned, but then a rage surged within him without an outlet. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he immediately commanded his security team to take action. However, at that moment, a terrifying sharp object sliced through the air. Then the level 11 powerhouse inevitably hit me, and my photo appeared in front of Milton. Then I grabbed his collar and painfully said, "Hez as old as a sow. Why don't you let him go?" Milton, no one. This painful and angry emotion makes the audience feel angry. Then people constantly criticize Milton. On the other side, Milton hears curses around his ears. At one moment, he felt surprised, angry, and hurt. I whispered that it was all over. Milton Nicholas was a serious person who began to try to get out of his predicament. He shouted, "My name is Milton Sith. I am the son of Count Milton Heath." When I heard this news, I became even more serious and asked him to show my ID card to prove my identity. Next, I apologized to him with a tragic expression on my face. Finally, before Xingjin appeared, I disappeared into the shimmering lights, while Milton, who remained, breathed a sigh of relief, but saw everyone below looking at him with a disapproving gaze. At first, when I spoke my full name, my voice was very low, so people only heard Milton's voice. When Milton realized that he had almost fainted immediately, he clearly knew that after that, the entire CN region would consider him a suicide. In a hotel in District 9, I recovered and felt refreshed. When I opened the internet, I saw Milton hysterical. Not surprisingly, revenge was not slow. But I quickly calmed down because I had to verify something very important next. With that in mind, I took out an activated virtual helmet and placed it on my head, activating the virtual world. After a while, my consciousness suddenly fell into darkness, and countless lights flickered before my eyes. But when I opened my eyes again, I arrived at a brand new city with all kinds of people on the streets. At that moment, a little soul appeared in front of me. It was a virtual assistant that everyone automatically carried. Its function was to provide players with basic information and also change their thinking. He will bring more utility to players. According to Little Soul's explanation, this is the virtual universe of the Milky Way continent, where most players in the entire galaxy are concentrated. Even the area is larger than the actual planet Yamu. Here, bank accounts directly contact the bank. Not only can you learn martial arts, but you can also carry out order transactions. It can be said that this is a completely simulated world. A few days later, I had been testing the information body in the virtual world, but I found that not only my level 15 Kung Fu, but also the damaged cells were perfectly cloned into my body, and I felt that the glasses were still the same as the reality. This miracle surprised me, but at the same time, I thought of almost the same dream space. These two spaces gave me the feeling of the difference between the internet and personal computers, and were the true identity of Yang Yizhou, the creator of the dream space. Perhaps everything will be more complicated than I imagined. At that moment, my eyes suddenly lit up. If there is a connection between dreams and the virtual realm, their functions might interact. After all, the dreamer's mind could potentially enter the virtual world. If the dreamer's consciousness could be transported into this digital realm, then dreams could manifest in reality as well. Just as I pondered this thrilling possibility, a sudden knock echoed from the hotel room door. Upon opening it, I was greeted by the law enforcer, who had returned after several days of absence. Once inside, he promptly delivered a series of updates. He shared details about mysterious events that had been reported up the chain, and surprisingly, proposed a substantial reward for me. Simultaneously, the Tianwei Academy in the Seed District was holding new admissions, prompting him to personally escort me for a preliminary assessment. It turned out that the Tianwei Academy was the premier institution in each new district, exclusively selecting the most gifted martial artists. Graduates from this academy, even the least proficient, achieved at least level 11, marking them as formidable fighters who surpassed the typical level 11 standards. Moreover, those who excelled could even have the opportunity to join the Tianwei Institute of the Solar System, where incredible prospects awaited. Recently, the newly established Amok district was also recruiting for the Tianwei Academy, which is why he had decided to take me along for an assessment. It became clear that the Tianwei Academy was the highest institution in each new district, only accepting those with exceptional martial talent and potential. Perhaps things are much more complicated than I imagined. My eyes suddenly lit up. If there is a connection between dreams and virtual space, their functions can interact with each other. After all, the brain of dreams can enter the virtual world. If you can bring the brain of dreams to the virtual world, then dreams can also appear in reality. Only here is the true gathering place for starry sky fairies, usually millennials, but this time we encountered such a big person using our college's star pulse board, and we were fortunate to be monitored by both his light and classical Chinese exams. I was surprised and asked who answered my question with such a big person. Jiang Yan smiled and said that the exam for Nancy, the son of Purple Crystal Monkey Star River Orchid, has finally begun. Not only did the level 11 powerhouse take the lead, but there was also the emergence of a level 11 super genius. But when the entire Amur star system was trembling, no one knew that my appearance would break the history of the entire region. Not long after, Jiang Yan and I boarded the transport ship to the main planet. Soon after, we saw a very spectacular stargate ahead, with a huge disk emitting an ancient and heavy atmosphere. According to Jiang Yan's introduction, this is the very heart of the planet, Zheng-Amu, the last bastion against the invasion of extraterrestrial beings. This disk serves as the bloodline and destiny verification chart for the legendary Tier 11 elite. It is said that whenever a legendary immortal bloodline appears, the destiny chart will shimmer and unveil the vast cosmic organs. However, since the establishment of this destiny chart, it has never been fully illuminated. Thus, no one knows exactly what the spectacle would be like. As our vessel slowly descended into the docking area, we discovered that numerous high-tire ships had already arrived, most of which belonged to Tier 11 elites leading their young teams. Strangely enough, upon landing, regardless of their status, all warriors disembarked. Everyone's gaze was fixed upon an elderly figure who emerged at the center. Even Jiang Yan approached to greet him immediately. After returning, he informed me that this elder was the head of the academy for this event and also one of the 12 most formidable Tier 12 warriors present. Hearing this, I fell silent, engraving his name in my heart, but at that very moment, suddenly, a riot erupted in the crowd, and everyone turned their gaze to the sky. Only a sparkling roller coaster appeared in the sky, with the words Emperor Nanzi written on the outside of the ship. Seeing this, everyone showed the appropriate respect. Soon after, the cabin door slowly opened, and two figures stepped down from the ship. The leader was a handsome young man, the son of the famous Earl Lansei. This talent examination also started early because of him alone. And the middle-aged bodyguard behind him, although not showing much presence, had one of the strongest 12-level factions in the competition. Then, Lansei took the bodyguard to meet Lao Mo and Han Xuan for a few words. Lao Ma immediately declared that the official examination had begun. As soon as his words ended, a young man stepped forward, his eyes radiating excitement and anticipation. At that very moment, Jiang Yan stammered after shifting his gaze towards me. It is said that this young man is a genius hailing from the slave class. Many noble families, fearing the loss of their titles and status, often seek out exceptional talents to adopt into their households. In this context, the slave market is particularly prevalent among the nobility. I looked into his skeptical eyes and asked why he didn't seek talent within his own territory. Jiang Yan simply smiled and shook his head, explaining that top-tier talents are incredibly rare. The chances of discovering a supreme martial arts genius in his own lands are far smaller than the odds of winning a flashy lottery ticket. While one might hit the jackpot, every genius in the slave market comes at an exorbitant price. Just the ordinary Chen Jingzhao is worth several planetary lives, which means that the nobles engaging in slavery are in fact gambling on their fortunes. Upon hearing this, I suddenly felt enlightened. No wonder, in my ragged state, they were so excited upon witnessing my strength. It turns out that I was nothing less than a living, breathing, money-making machine in front of him. As we spoke, that young slave had walked up to the stellar control board. Soon after, he began to draw the wound, letting his blood drip onto it. A second later, the stellar board lit up with a brilliant white glow, and the young man started to push against the board with increasing force. Meanwhile, the small spheres beside the board were also glowing brighter and brighter. The owner of the young man immediately showed a joyful expression upon seeing the situation. However, before he could be too happy for long, the young man suddenly hugged his legs with a loud bang, and then his nearsighted strength was exhausted, and he fell to the ground without getting up. Information text also appeared on the screen next to Xingtan, clearly displaying white bullets and different halos of Samsung representing different levels of life. Each level also has 109 star longitude, indicating greater potential. At this moment, The slave owner beside him was angry. Obviously, the gap between a young person's talent and their expectations is too big and too fast. After the young person's test, all the young people who participated also walked up one by one, but during the process, some were happy and some were pampered, except for a few who didn't. Except for the extraordinary life constitution, most of the others only have extraordinary life constitution, and reaching the Chen star level is only a few years. But this is enough to attract the attention of many people on the field. Just because Chen Jingxi was able to enter Tianwei Academy, if there were no unexpected circumstances, they would become level 11 knights in the future. Now that I am standing beside them, I have understood the situation. However, when I was about to board the plane, Lan She, who was sitting on her horse, suddenly stood up. He said, "At this point, I am at my best." If he could write an article, Lan She would say, "Take a big step towards the ancient star of fate." Then, with everyone's attention, he drew it with his own blood. Immediately, the ancient disk star emitted a yellow light. Everyone in the field of swordsmanship was shouting because the golden light represented Huang Yao's level. For thousands of years, Huang Yao's level was not always clear, as he was a symbol of the highest talent. However, Lan Xia and Master Mok were far from satisfied. They awaited the unfolding events with a serious demeanor. Lan Xia took a deep breath after drawing with his blood. Instantly, the sky in the vicinity began to swirl ominously. Countless cosmic energies began to converge upon Lan Xia, ultimately transforming into numerous electrical cannons surrounding him. This spectacle left many knights in the domain wide-eyed, for within the star fate table, a hint of cosmic order was radiating, a power that only an 11th tier knight could wield. Yet, at this moment, Lan Xia comprehended this power even at the 10th tier. Moments later, as he began to push the stars with both hands, the star fate table expanded, smoothly spinning in a mesmerizing dance. In the blink of an eye, in an instant, the circle lit up with 6 stars, but this was just the beginning. With the terror of continuous explosions around the blue car, the guardian star immediately reached 9 Tai-Bai stars. Seeing the ancient miracle, the entire stand began to be in chaos. But at this point, Lanch was on the edge of the universe. But his eyes turned to the subtle beauty of his soul, and then the infinite energy of the universe poured into his mind, and his full body power finally stopped. At this point, the strength of his entire body could no longer hold back, and in the next moment, along with the explosion from the first void, the meteor on the 5 Tiger star chart seemed to have broken a structure, and the yellow and gray light on the chart instantly turned red, causing panic among everyone in the school. The news also spread to the peaceful center at an extremely fast speed. Just because this is a joint event, without a superhuman body for tens of thousands of years, even though it's just a pair, it represents that Lanch will definitely join in the future level 13 warriors, as well as in the Federal Council of Anmeng District. An elderly person in the central location regretfully said that unfortunately, this incident does not belong to our peaceful zone, but we basically have to follow the ceremony of preparing for the Duke's son's bloodline upgrade. At the same time, Mayor Andre stood in front of the window at the government headquarters in the peaceful district. However, after being shocked, he quickly became calm. If it were normal, he would definitely be very jealous, but this time, he was very clear that Lan Che was not the real protagonist, and the star chart on the other side finally extinguished the red flames. However, due to tonight's celebration, Lanch was not in a hurry to leave. He decided to stay here a little longer, but many people were aware that Lanch's performance had ended this talent test, and in fact, it had already ended. Even other 9-star level contestants would not be too exciting. I decided to stay here for a little longer, but many people clearly belong to the category of Lan Che. The talent test has already begun, so even a few Chen Jingjing candidates who came out later are not too intense. When everyone was tired, Zhang Yan's mood became very excited again, because it was finally my turn to participate in the talent test, step out of the blue heart field, and become the most powerful genius in the universe. The true power made the entire Red Star area cheer just to climb up. Life was considered superhuman, but I was found to have surpassed the moon level, not only reaching the second level in the first battle. Even more so, I created an unprecedented miracle in the new region. Despite my immense power, the strong individuals around did not pay attention to me, even saying that this time Jiang Yan came just to make a strong impact. After seeing the situation, I hesitated no more, needing just one more second. During this period, my fingertips pierced through the skin like blades, and immediately a drop of reddish-yellow blood appeared, only slightly deformed at the temperature of the ambient air event. But despite this didn't attract much attention. Just a few people glanced at me with a certain difference. Most people were doing their own work, but suddenly my red and yellow blood gently fell on my heart. The large plate seemed to have finally broken the seal at the bottom of the plate, and suddenly a bright red pillar of fire appeared. It went out where the pillar passed, but the red star seemed to be completely lit up. Whether it was Blue Car or Mo Lao, this matter was frozen in their minds, only to see the blue sky in the distance like a newborn star. And then suddenly this thing appeared, and everyone was surprised. Jiang Yan's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Despite his high expectations for me, he did not expect me to surpass the blue car and become a life of the sun shadow class. Now that others have realized this, their eyes immediately begin to reflect deep confusion and dreams. At the same time, in the law enforcement office, the law enforcement director of the Security Academy suddenly stood up and immediately called Jiang Yan to inquire about the situation. At this moment, Jiang Yan had been covered so deeply by the entire solar system that even a dozen or so phone calls from law enforcement agencies couldn't see their situation. Suddenly, he had an idea and took out his plane, flying directly back to the Security Academy. At the same time, in the center of the Yamu New District People's Council, when the old man received the news, he frowned first, but his face immediately became excited because the information indicated that this genius came from the Jupiter region. At this moment, even as one of the 12 members of the Federal Council Alliance, a star of the Alliance, he could hardly contain his excitement. Immediately afterwards, without even needing an airplane, he flew directly out into space. And a similar scene unfolded in other areas on the main planet Jupiter. If the upgrade of Blue Che to the Day of Light was anticipated, the appearance of a second Day of Light truly shocked everyone. In an instant, the major figures on the main planet began to act together. Afterward, all kinds of luxurious flying vessels headed towards the Skyguard Academy, but nobody knew that this was just the beginning for me. In the next moment, along with the chaos of countless cosmic energies, the space around me suddenly shattered. However, before others could launch their already shattered void attack, a new round of showdowns began, and then they almost reached the second county-level station. At this moment, shock swept through everyone's hearts like a flash flood. Mo Lao and others, who should have been present, had even stronger records. Immediately after, they all showed expressions of disbelief, guiding the mirror on my body to tightly emit the scent of alcohol. At this moment, the strength in my hand finally condensed. I quickly grabbed the heart disk with both hands and survived for a second. Then, under the influence of inertia, the heart disk began to rotate rapidly again, with stars around it being quickly spotted at an extremely fast speed. Shortly after, the disk, which had rotated again, suddenly stopped. Just because the map had reached 9 solar stars at this time, and women were emitting strong red light, many people's bodies couldn't stop trembling and even began to doubt whether they were dreaming. But for me, my eyes are still firmly fixed on the star in front of me, because 9 suns are not my limit at all. Perhaps I can make this star burn and the light of the universe vibrate. Then, under everyone's gaze, the edict turned around again, realizing the situation. He understood my intention at a glance. Then, as he stared at me, his face turned ugly. Silently speaking, even an unimaginable existence in the Milky Way had only a few people. A novice from a first-level resource has just stepped out, and he dares to say that the guardians around him cannot speak too much, because only my talent, I have no one to judge myself for a long time now. Now my strength has reached its limit, but the new disk seems to have rotated to its limit. Despite my efforts to stay strong, I cannot move, and then I have a feeling of arrogance. I decided not to hide my true power anymore. My body immediately erupted with an astonishing sensation, and then the 10 fists and 5 rings inside my body began to spin rapidly. Suddenly, the light in my eyes turned into dust. At this moment, my entire body turned into a blazing flame, but the heat on my body caused the space to crack open. Just then, as my hand tightly gripped the star chart on the chart, a strong red light suddenly emitted. Not long after, the sudden red light turned into cutting off my shallow tongue, but I couldn't help but look back at myself, slowly revealing richness in my calm eyes. Soon after, the second hidden space around me was completely destroyed. The next big star lake began to spin, and suddenly, a strange wave suddenly hit the surroundings, only to see the red light on the star lake begin to fade. At this moment, as a historic success, it was descending into reality. In the blink of an eye, a wonderful sight appeared in the dark space. However, at this moment, a strange wave suddenly swept across the world and then crossed countless light years. Continuously spreading to the entire new area, people washed away by the waves were parked in the first park. Countless noisy scenes seemed to suddenly freeze, and even distant airships suddenly slowed down like invisible hands, forcing them. Even the adults above cannot suppress the trembling sensation of their bodies. When they feel confused and blurred, a little inexplicable happiness arises deep inside them. Although they didn't know what had happened, their souls could now feel clearly that the sky they were in was filled with joy and congratulations. A great being was finally born, becoming the only immortal genius for millions of years. Although the master of the Celestial Silver Sect was very interested in it, when the entire new region was celebrating my birth, I was treated as a country bumpkin by the Count's son at a banquet and warned not to approach his sister again. However, a voice suddenly came from beside him, and it was the young genius Milton observing the situation. He immediately regained his thinking about the noble priest and walked ahead. When he began to consider how to greet and introduce his sister, Lance just frowned, glanced at her, then walked past Milton and approached me directly. Lance took out a card and complexly told me that the immortal foundation in the Celestial Silver System is also rare. This time, on behalf of the family, I invite you to visit the Land family after entering the main system. At the end of this sentence, the whole party suddenly became chaotic, and countless gazes turned to me. Many nobles and ladies walked towards me. As for Milton, he was initially completely caught off guard by the visuals around him. He could hardly believe that the indigenous person he struggled to look at was, in fact, the one rumored to possess the legendary bloodline and immortality. For a moment, his head spun, overwhelmed by the sheer number of people surrounding him. He intended to play it humble, but found himself exposed before everyone. However, faced with the sincere demeanor of Lam Triet, he couldn't bring himself to snub him. Ultimately, I could only smile as I accepted his card and promised to consider it. Meanwhile, over at the new Amok Zone, the law enforcement agency had detained Agent 7, but they were finally set free. Upon their release, Agent 7 gritted his teeth and stated that he would definitely file a complaint regarding the law enforcement practices in the Amok Zone. Yet, Li Min, standing beside him, remained optimistic, reassuring him that their release meant everything was stable again, suggesting that perhaps his talent wasn't quite what they had imagined. After all, defeating Yariji was no easy feat. Losing a talent like Blood Moon isn't entirely unmanageable. As they spoke, a chartered aircraft landed before them. Despite the advanced technology of unmanned flight, many still preferred the flexibility of a personal driver. Li Min curiously asked the driver what holiday it was today. The drivers first looked at them in surprise, discussing the impression that illuminated the entire new area before. Did you see it? There is an immortal legend in Yamu New area, and when the story is told, they all see calm expressions. Driver, Van Goen, looked at them with a mixture of surprise and awe, commenting on the previous impression that had illuminated our new district. Haven't you seen? The new Asia district has birthed an undeniably legendary phenomenon. Agent 7 and the other person exchanged glances, a chill running down their spines as the implications settled in. Their initial reaction was to think the driver was joking, but he quickly dismissed that notion, presenting a holographic display from the ship. A 7-colored beam sliced through the vast sky, mesmerizing all who beheld it. Underneath the majestic starry canopy, an image resembling a deity stood resolute. Although the figure's features were obscured, both Agent 07 and I were instantly struck with shock. A chilling sensation surged from the depths of our souls, enveloping our entire beings. After a moment of stunned silence, Agent 07 hesitantly posed the question, could a new war be on the horizon? Meanwhile, in the law enforcement office at the White Cloud District, Silak stepped out of his office, his mood decidedly bleak. Observing this, the others began to murmur among themselves, speculating that the issue was graver than it appeared, a matter of significant talent. However, for Silak, the one directly involved, he took the situation rather lightly, having recently acquired a stunning new planet. Now, he could take the time to relax with his family. The thought of savoring those joyful family moments lightened his mood considerably. However, just as he stepped out of the elevator, a sudden announcement echoed from the law enforcement building. Under the directive of the law enforcement agency, Silak had caused an unacceptable amount of damage to the White Cloud District. Confronted by law enforcement level 11, Kailak decided to impose the following punishment: stripped of his law enforcement duties, banned from holding any regency for life, and prohibited from regaining noble status for 3 generations. Demoted to the battle zone of level 8 for the next 3,000 years. As this cold declaration resonated throughout the law enforcement building, everyone stared at Silak in disbelief, unable to comprehend the extent of his transgressions. Meanwhile, I was far away in the Nuamak district, oblivious to these events. At that moment, I sat in a grand room, my heart filled with gratitude for the support Deng Luopu and others had provided me. They not only supplied the necessary resources for my training, but also bestowed upon me a valuable title of Count, allowing me to select a territory in the Nuamak district and relocate the entire population of Lanheng there. Little did I know that all 3 major forces in the universe had been stirred into action. Remember, they even took the initiative to visit me, bringing along a variety of gifts. I recall a time when I had to struggle to save up to purchase a living planet. But unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, know that they exist beyond the ordinary realm. Now they are personally coming to open doors for me, presenting a range of gifts. I reflect on my past self, who had to diligently accumulate funds just to buy a habitable planet, never expecting that in an instant, in the following days, I took another exclusive spaceship journey. Besides wanting to choose one for family sightseeing, I also needed several massive spacecraft for migration purposes. Since the previous manager had been replaced, this time, the shopping went smoothly. Afterward, I selected several safe and high-quality planets to expand Lansheng in every aspect for the future. However, before proceeding, I still had one matter to resolve. Since Starland is a resource under the jurisdiction of the White Cloud Alliance, I would need their approval to complete the migration to Starland. Fortunately, regarding this, Dang had solemnly committed to personally negotiate with the Federation of the White Vapor Star, ensuring that I would succeed in relocating the inhabitants of Lamstar to the Amok Star sector. At this moment, I also clearly understood the whole situation, so I could say, Jiang Yan's strategy is indeed a masterstroke. Following a conventional path, I would have returned to the White Mist Zone with the 07 Knights. However, I've been cleverly lured by Jiang Yan to the Gravekeeper planet, where I officially register as a new resident of the Gravekeeper Zone. Yet I find myself unconcerned about this. After all, in any new zone I enter, it feels remarkably similar. However, as I strategize my migration to Lantam, amidst the myriad of lights, I unexpectedly encounter, initially just an ordinary citizen, I became the first to step beyond the universe. This happened because in the new zone, achieving a martial arts level of 12 marks the pinnacle of battle, while I have already possessed 3 top-tier level 15 abilities from the very start. Not only that, in just 2.5 years, I ascended to become one of the world's greatest martial artists, capable of challenging an 11th level enforcer with my 9th level physique. Yet, I am merely a fragment of an unexpected experiment, as the fierce competition has shocked more than 10 surrounding new zones, marking me as the only immortal in millions of years. Thus, The President of the Federation has bestowed upon me countless resources and granted me the freedom to choose my territory within the Gravekeeper Zone. Yet, as everything seems to flow perfectly, I can't shake the feeling that my mother is watching from afar. An emergency situation had arisen. As I listened to Dongthang Twit report the circumstances, my expression darkened immediately. The problem stemmed from my involvement in the Star Asia tomb, which had led to the previous guide at Star Lun being temporarily sidelined and replaced by a new, formidable level 10 operative. But no one knew that he not only regarded it as a private vacation planet, but also repeatedly demanded that it return to its original stellar proportion. Fortunately, the number of stars I left behind played a role when I left. But when everyone thought the difficulties were over, no one expected our leaders to think that Langqing had many rich countries, so they used supplementation as a reason to demand the withdrawal of shares again. In the end, they underestimated my true power in the universe. As long as I listened to my words, I confidently told everyone not to worry. Then I decided to take a break and immediately returned to Lansing. Now the Federal Chancellor Dunlop has just arrived. I told him everything, and Dunlop just smiled and nodded, saying that Yamu New District really can't directly manage the cloud-free area, but to solve this problem, it only requires the use of some resources, and then he picked up the phone. I made a few phone calls, and then told me there was no problem. I saw his eyes moving and asked him if he had found my friend's room. Is there anything else he wants to tell me? In the end, he said he had paid me in advance for all the cultivation resources from Yamu New area. Just buying some planets and spacecraft provided by Dunlop is not cheap. If I don't do anything, I feel unsafe. Dunlop also understands my thoughts, and his mood becomes even happier. Dunlop wants to know if upgrading too quickly will cause the platform to become unstable. With only the planets and spacecraft that Dung provided, the price was not cheap. If I do nothing, I feel a bit uneasy. Vungon also guessed my thoughts. Then, I once again felt uncertain about Dunlop's intentions, and he proposed to hold a dance exchange competition under the name of Yamu New District, hoping that the competition could cover nearby star systems. All the extraordinary geniuses from various civilizations and races have been gathered here. The ultimate goal of this competition is singular to attract all these geniuses to come and be my training partners. Hearing this, my heart leaped powerfully, and the blood in my body seemed to boil. Although I have experienced many new things in this space, my goal has never changed: to step onto the stage of the sky and fight against the genius of the people. Deng Luodong's suggestion undoubtedly touched my heart. So I agreed, but before that, I decided to go back to Lingshan. Deng Luotong nodded and told me not to worry because this game involves more than 10 new areas and preparation will take some time. So they were preparing for a while, and Yambo Deng Luotong looked into my eyes, slowly becoming serious, saying that although this game is limited to level 12 or below, there will definitely be more level 11 geniuses. So although my immortal bloodline is strong, I am only level 9 now, so before that, I need to constantly improve my level. All the resources that support my cultivation in the Dark Zone have been optimized. After reminding Deng Luodong a few words, he left and I boarded a new spacecraft. It is a light electric spacecraft, driven entirely by artificial intelligence. It is not only equipped with 1,000 model-type Guardians, but each Guardian's power has reached level 9 standard. It can be said that only these Guardians are enough to destroy a ground-level planet. But what excites me the most is Yam New District will try their best to arrange for me to give a few instructions before Dunlop leaves here, while I decided to go back on the spaceship I just received, which is completely up to me. Lightweight spaceship, controlled by artificial intelligence, is equipped with not just 1,000 model soldiers, but each soldier possesses strength that meets the formidable level 9 standard. One could say that with these soldiers alone, it would be enough to conquer a level planet. Still, the blacksmith created specifically for me can simulate gravitational environments at varying multiples, even providing a training regimen suitable for a level 12 warrior. After grasping this, it didn't take me long to turn my gaze toward the 1-month countdown to Lan Tam. began to absorb resources frantically under the intense pressure of the training room. Meanwhile, light years away, on a vacation in Lantam, a short, stout man was indulging in treatment fit for a king. Holding up a datapad, he boasted to his friends, "Don't think this is an ordinary low-resource planet. As a result, in just 2 months here, I've amassed 100,000 star silver." His words echoed with pride. The person across from him appeared skeptical. Understand that 100,000 star silver is a significant sum for an ordinary person, but then he couldn't help but remind him that with so many planets now producing gold, a fair number of powerful warriors would inevitably emerge. Beware of being swept away in the tide. However, the short, stout man wasn't particularly concerned, stating, "I checked beforehand, the highest martial arts level on this planet is only 9. Although their traditional martial arts system seemed quite advanced at lower tiers, the higher tier traditional martial arts were rather mediocrity when compared to others over the years. Only one genius named Jun Shen had emerged from the void, and to this day, the planet has seen fewer than 10 individuals with proven levels above 5. They only possess the qualifications. This indicates that there are absolutely no more than 10 martial artists on this planet." Hearing this, the person across from him was filled with jealousy, but then he seemed to recall something. Subsequently, in a mysterious tone, he mentioned that a significant event had recently occurred in the central region. Rumor has it that due to the negligence of an 11th level law enforcer, our talented individual from the Baiwu area was transported to the Mumu region beforehand. The initial registration for citizenship seemed unremarkable, but unexpectedly, this prodigy was identified as possessing immortal blood. Now, the entire new network is buzzing with this news, and the law enforcer has been exiled to the battlefield. Meanwhile, the rotund man, with a contemplative expression, immediately connected to the new network as soon as he hung up the call. At this moment, the news had spread like wildfire across the network, leaving him slightly bewildered. "Because this genius seemed to be on your planet, but later you shook your head and rejected the idea. In the end, there are millions of planets living on this planet, and you cannot encounter such a low possibility." After comforting himself, the person opened a door. Immediately, a signal covered everyone on Sirius. The chubby person said coldly, "The deadline I gave you is approaching. Now you have half a day to meet me at your old place. As soon as you finish speaking, this person is very happy. On this land, he is not just a worker bullied by his colleagues, he is the king here." Quickly, after more than 20 flashes, Edward finally gathered them together. At first, he had a greedy expression on his face, but when he saw his own expression, he suddenly became gloomy. The sky started to brighten, and soon it turned dark. The sea in the distance began to fluctuate violently. Seeing the situation, Lin Zhengyue immediately stepped forward and explained that Lanshin was just a first-level resource planet, and the amount of resources extracted last time had already emptied Lanshin's pocket. Vangon Baku had also recognized the identity of the rebellious Lam Qingwet. It was said that he was not only one of the many avatars of the 5 sacred Lun Tum, but also a devoted follower of the god of war, who once conquered the universe. Observing the growing agitation among the 5 sacred Lun Tum, Baku felt compelled to issue a warning so that everyone could grasp the significance of this matter. And Lam Qingwet, standing ahead, undeniably was the chosen one destined for assassination. Contemplating the unseen fate that lingered in the world, a sudden realization struck him. In that moment, a terrifying pressure enveloped Lam Qingwet in an instant. The dark stone-like eyes of Baku swept over the many martial saints. "I will give you 5 more days. If within those 5 days you cannot arrange what I need, you will not escape my wrath. Prepare for a fate similar to his." With those words, Baku was about to carry out the assassination of Lam Qingwet directly. However, just then, a shockwave suddenly descended from the sky, accompanied by a massive circle, as if it had been violently torn away by some unseen force. In the blink of an eye, an enormous spaceship gradually emerged from the void. At last, my universe had showcased its true power, yet little did I expect that merely stepping out for the first time would send ripples throughout the surroundings. At that moment, The guide had selected a pivotal character within Luntam, while I merely uttered a phrase in a distant realm. In the blink of an eye, numerous cosmic nobles descended upon the scene. Even the starry Count made his appearance. Meanwhile, an overwhelming turbulence in the sky began to unleash a rain of chaos. One by one, top-tier spaceships suddenly manifested in the atmosphere. This grand spectacle left the guide, Bao, utterly stunned. Bao found himself in a daze. Yet, all of this was merely the beginning. Suddenly, an immense spaceship, stretching tens of thousands of kilometers, slowly emerged. For a brief moment, Bao's mind went blank. This was all due to a deeply engraved image of a black dragon's tail on that ship. In the next instant, the dazzling starry expanse heralded the arrival of countless noble beings, even the Count of the Starry Realm. At this moment, the terrifying spread across the sky caused each elite spaceship to appear from above, leaving the doll-like guide in a state of utter bewilderment. However, this was just the beginning. With a spaceship extending over tens of thousands of miles coming into view, the mind of the doll-like figure fell into a void. All of this was due to the profound engraving of a black dragon's tail on that ship. This was none other than the foremost clan of the Baiwu region, the Shanhei Long clan. It must be noted that they were a force that the Senate had to yield to. Yet now, they had come to such a remote place. Bao instantly recognized the significance of their presence. Bao immediately let go of Lin Qingwei's hand and rushed forward, respectfully greeting the Black Dragon clan. However, before he could approach the massive starship, hundreds of small aircraft swiftly surrounded him. In an instant, the breath of over 100 level 10 warriors locked onto him. Yet as Bao stood there, under the intense gaze of the warriors, the hatch of the colossal warship slowly creaked open. Then, a man draped in a magnificent cloak stepped out. Just the movement of his body radiated the aura of someone of the highest rank. After the man emerged, he first cast a gentle glance at Bu before speaking, introducing himself as La Fong and inquiring if Bu was the one leading the Soul Crystal Lin system. Upon hearing this, Bu's entire body began to tremble violently. The sheer force of a level 10 individual instantly locked onto him. However, as Bu stood there, scrutinized by the powerful warriors, the upper hatch of the spaceship suddenly opened slowly. Then, a man in a resplendent cloak emerged, with just a simple gesture like raising his hand. But before Bu or any other formidable warrior could arrive with their intentions, La Fong across from him merely nodded towards Bu and declared that as a leader of civilization, he dared to wield personal power to seize the sacred guardian's treasures, even going so far as to unleash his wrath upon the mother of the undying Count. In an instant, he was captured, awaiting the return of the undying Count for judgment. No sooner had the words left his lips than hundreds of warriors surrounding Bu lunged at him. Immediately, a torrent of fiery chains surged forth, filled with rage and spirits. In a heartbeat, Bu found himself enveloped entirely by the blazing red chains, seething with otherworldly energy. Shortly after, he appeared before Lin Zhengyue and the others. At this moment, the people of Lanheng were still in a daze, completely bewildered by the scene that exceeded all comprehension. Just facing the 12th level power of Rofeng was already overwhelming. Yet, before Bo-U or the other powerful figures could discern their purpose for being there, Rofeng nodded toward Bu-U, stating that, as a leader of civilization, he should not exploit personal gain to seize my possessions, and even had the audacity to act flamboyantly against the mother of the undying Count. Without hesitation, he ordered his capture. As soon as the words were spoken, hundreds of powerful figures surrounding Bu-U seized him. Then, thousands of chains, infused with energy and spirit, erupted forth. In an instant, Bu was entirely engulfed by the power of these chains. In that moment, Bolo felt the shattering blow to Bu-U's trust. He immediately tried to explain everything. If it were about using his power to protect his own interests, he could still own up to that. But to say he would brazenly harm the mother of the immortal Count, even with 10,000 copies of a decree, he would never dare to do such a thing. Thus, he sensed that there was a huge secret lurking behind this incident. However, Lo Feng merely looked down at him from above, gently asking, "What are you doing now?" Upon hearing this, Buo felt a moment of confusion, instinctively wanting to start a debate, but suddenly he seemed to realize something profound. His face shifted clearly from a shade of pink to white. Observing the situation, Lo Feng decided not to say much more, opting instead to subdue him now, waiting for the right moment to collect a personal debt. But just then, the clear blue sky suddenly resonated with a sound that pierced the air. A massive white creature began to drift slowly into view. Its scale rivaled that of the previous Black Dragon ship, and Bu-O immediately recognized the identity of the newcomer. For it was none other than the prestigious Bai Shui clan, the most formidable family in the realm. Yet, before he could fully grasp the shock of it all, the clear blue sky seemed to welcome a storm of aggression. In the blink of an eye, 6 fleets appeared, offering themselves to the Blue Star ship, their scale no less impressive than that of the Black Dragon. And the representatives for them stood resolutely, ready to engage. They are all top celebrity earls, and now they only feel their mouths dry. Although he knows why so many top forces are pouring in, he still feels that this is the most glorious moment of his life. At this moment, after exchanging glances, one of the counts spoke up, inquiring Lan Tam about the recent damages. We also caught a glimpse of the immortal count. Hearing this, Lo Feng nodded in understanding. Subsequently, a figure appeared before Lin Zhengyue and his group. At this time, the people of Lunhung were still in a state of bewilderment, as the scene before them had far surpassed their comprehension. Just facing the 12th level power of Ro Feng was daunting enough. Ro Feng handed Lin Zhengyu a vial of golden liquid, stating that within his body he possessed only the strength of level 11. Take out a drop and dilute it 100 times. After consuming it, it can heal you and enhance your strength. Upon hearing this, Lin Zhengyue trembled in disbelief. He directly presented a vial of golden liquid, emphasizing, "Notably, I only have this one vial of level 11 potion. If you take a drop, dilute it 100 times, and consume it, it can heal you and also bolster your strength." Listening to Lum Qingwit, his entire being shook with anticipation. Lum Queen extracted a drop and began the dilution process, intending to amplify his power. There was a surge of emotion in the air. Lan Feng recognized the intentions of the group and assured them, "There's no need to worry too much. We are here solely to rescue the immortal Ba Tan." It is crucial to understand that today, Lan Tam at its peak is merely at 5 Dao Da, representing only level 9. Yet, now he possesses a vial of the highest level 11 potion. This small vial of medicine could potentially surpass Lan Tum's decades of accumulated power. Witnessing this, Lan Tum felt a surge of determination, knowing that victory was still within reach. After a moment of hesitation, he bravely asked Ba Tan who the immortal was. Ultimately, it was the god of war who had recently departed. During their conversation, it was clear that the immortal prince was one of the Empire's cosmic entities. However, this small blue planet had the fortune of being recognized by the war god of Lan Tam. Hearing this, Lak Feng smiled to himself and then solemnly spoke, declaring that the immortal prince was indeed the war god of Lan Tam. He elevated his form, a transcendent being never seen before in history, hailed as the first of the 8 directions in 1,000,000 years. Now he had ascended to the rank of the Undying Count. This revelation left all the level 9 warriors in Lanhung feeling as if the heavens had shifted beneath them. Meanwhile, on another exploration vessel, fueled by my immense resources, my cultivation speed began to surge. Yet despite all this, I didn't pour all my experiences into it. My mind was elsewhere. Once again, I stepped into the dreamlike realm. Ever since defeating the level 12 zombie, Zhang Yang Cheng, my path in the martial way had entered its second phase, and this was to be one of my level 15 dance techniques in the future. Only when I gathered enough level 12 foundational bricks would I be able to fully realize it. I have finally completed the basic form of the ultimate martial path. At that moment, channeling the primordial energy of the dream space, I will guide it to perfect my martial state. Only then can I hope to surpass Yang Yi Zhou. This monotonous training period has passed in the blink of an eye. Not long after, as a wave of black mist suddenly flooded into my body, I slowly opened my eyes. Through the endless consumption of training resources during this time, the immortal cells within me had coalesced into 20,000 orbs. Having reached the pinnacle of martial arts at level 9, I now harness the power of peak martial arts at level 12. At last, I have successfully located and defeated another level 12 undead warrior. Merging with Manhwa and Hokungok, I forged the earth-shattering force of water, naming it the Northern Mystic Turtle of True Water. Suddenly, a surge of ethereal energy erupted from within me, and in the next instant, a punch embodying this celestial power was unleashed with the ferocity of a tiger. Before my eyes, the 2 layers of space in front of me were shattered, revealing a vast expanse of black space. Witnessing this scene, I felt immense satisfaction with the outcome of my training. Though I have yet to completely break through the 3rd layer of space, combat power I wield now is certainly at its peak. However, as I prepared to further experiment with the artificial intelligence aboard the ship, I was abruptly reminded. It turns out that after a month of progress, the ship is finally approaching the Lan Tin planet. I had to halt the experiments I initially planned. Although the troubles in Lan Tin had been resolved, it was said that this final matter had stirred quite a commotion in Lan Tin. However, the specifics of the issue remained unclear to him. Yet, I paid little heed to that assessment. Ultimately, I was nearing the Lan Tin area. However, when I turned my gaze back, the sight of my mother right before me captivated me instantly. Suddenly, I found myself engulfed in a whirlwind of confusion.